Lecture 3 2 Layers of Anxiety. Let me start by asking you two questions. Do you have a clear goal regarding your anxiety? And what is it? And the second question is, what methods do you use to cope with your anxiety today? If your answers are similar to stop anxiety and distract myself through X, Y, and Z, then pay close attention to this lecture. But even if your answers were different, you'll still learn a lot from this lecture. Anxiety in simple logic. It's commonly believed that our past determines our future. For example, at some point in the past, you learned how to use your electronic device and use that knowledge in the present to access this video. Moreover, of all the options available for you to reach your goal, you chose the most efficient one. Therefore, we can assume that based on our past experiences, we take actions in the present that help us achieve our goals in the most efficient way possible. Now, let's examine what happens when we try to apply the same logic to anxiety disorder. Based on the questions you've answered in the beginning of this lecture, when you started having problems with anxiety, your goal becomes clear: stop anxiety. Second question was what methods you use to cope with anxiety. And the logical thing to do is to go back to your past experiences and use the most efficient ways to stop anxiety. But the problem is you don't have a past experience with that amount of anxiety. So logically you go to the next best available option, which is apply methods you use to cope with stress that are distraction, avoidance, and suppression. Now, accidentally, they are the main sources of fuel for anxiety based on our previous lecture. What you don't know yet is that anxiety disorder is more than just stress. Gradually, you notice that your anxiety level keeps rising and your options seem to prove less effective. This is when most anxiety sufferers lose hope, give up trying to work on recovery, and start relying solely on medications. Even if they decide to keep fighting, due to lack of information, they still tend to go back to the same pattern all over again. That is, they set a goal to end anxiety and use the same methods, which once again get them nowhere. Stop anxiety as a goal. The problem with setting your goal to be stop anxiety is that it focuses all of your efforts around the problem, and all of your actions will be based on and around the problem. So each time you take a specific action, you're immediately checked to see if your anxiety is gone because of it. Just like you can't fall asleep when someone constantly asks if you are sleeping or not, so is your anxiety wide awake until you constantly check if it's gone. Note that when your goal is to stop anxiety, it doesn't matter if the methods you used are based on avoidance or around practices provided in this training. If you do anything with a goal to stop anxiety, you'll never have a lasting change. 2 layers of anxiety. Once you've defined your right why, it's time to learn about 2 layers of anxiety. The first layer is attitude you have towards your anxiety. For example, you constantly remind yourself that you should not be anxious, endlessly seek new solutions, and dwell on every symptom. The second layer of anxiety is the attitude you have towards everything else in your life. It has to do with 3 types of relationships we have learned about in Lecture 1. Note 1. First layer of anxiety has originally derived from the second layer of anxiety due to skewed worldview and coping strategies adopted in early childhood. Note 2. Fixing second layer of anxiety is a lifelong process, and it's important to remember that your objective is not to achieve the impossible task of removing anxiety from your life completely. The objective is to remove most unproductive second layer anxieties that limit your freedom to enjoy your life to the fullest. Importance of both layers. Importance of the first layer is that changing your attitude towards anxiety will yield results almost immediately. The course of action is to constantly do practices in order to achieve your right why, which will gradually deprive anxiety of its power. Importance of the second layer is less obvious but equally important and often ignored. Once you start working on your first layer of anxiety and start feeling less anxious, you'll be tempted to ignore working on the second layer. But if you choose to do so, anxiety stemming from the second layer will gradually build the first layer back up, bringing back all the discomfort and making you feel even more hopeless. This is why most sufferers have stories about feeling good for some time and then returning back to anxiety. The wrong type of rest. Rest is undoubtedly one of the most important components of recovery, but it's equally important to practice the most effective type of rest, otherwise all of your efforts will be for nothing. Typical and effective case of rest from anxiety would be to avoid it for the most part of your day through rigorous planning and scheduling. Here's an example. You wake up and take a cold shower because you've read it helps with blood circulation. Then you do some light exercise because you've read it releases serotonin. Then you drink 2 gallons of water because you've read it helps with dehydration that causes physical discomfort. Then you eat a breakfast designed for people with anxiety disorder, etc., etc., etc. Do you notice what's wrong with this schedule? It's built entirely around a problem and focuses only on the problem. There's absolutely nothing wrong with activities that you do, but the goal itself and the expectation you attach to it will eventually lead to disappointment. Recovery rest. Recovery rest consists of a set of rules and practices designed to effectively relax both mind and body. For maximum effectiveness, it's essential to make them part of your daily routine. Mind. Vow of silence and mind vomit. Vow of silence doesn't take any time. In fact, it helps you save time by not looking for wasteful information that you'll never execute anyway. Mind vomit does take time, but keep in mind that the purpose of mind vomit is to experience anxiety now so you can spend the rest of your day less anxious. So in that sense, mind vomit is potentially saving you the entire day worth of high anxiety. Body. No alcohol and caffeine, light exercise, deep breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation. Removing alcohol and caffeine takes no time. It makes you healthy overall. Light exercise like walking outside or even going out with your friends may take time, but it will make you even more fulfilled and empowered overall. Deep breathing is optional, but it helps when you want to disrupt your anxious thinking pattern and reduce your symptoms. Finally, progressive muscle relaxation does take time, but it's the most effective way to consciously use your body to rewire your brain back to a relaxed state.